Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Piano TV. So, since it's the summertime and teachers like me have mostly the summer off with like some other things on the go, I'm kind of in the mood to do less technical videos and more kind of like exploratory general information videos. I mean, we'll see how long this sticks, but what I wanted to share with you today are 5 tips that I find really useful for songwriting. A lot of people ask me about songwriting, and I'm not a genius songwriter, but I have been writing music since I was a kid, and I did it somewhat regularly in my 20s when I was in a band and we played regularly and stuff. So I feel like I do have some insights that I can share with you. So that's what this video is going to be about. It's not going to be like exactly how to songwrite. It's not going to be like super technical, but I'm going to share the 5 things with you that I do. They're basically like my laws of songwriting. Like I never thought about it until thinking up this video, but these are the 5 things that I always do whenever I'm writing. So anyway, let's get started. And just so you know, my main focus with songwriting has always been writing vocals and writing lyrics. And I've written very little instrumental only music, like very little piano only music. Usually I use piano as a means to an end so that I can write a melody with vocals. So that's the perspective I'm going to be coming from with this video. Just to give you some perspective on how much I enjoy writing. This bin is packed full of binders and notebooks from my childhood, my teenage years, and my 20s. It's not all music, but probably 50% of it is, which readily brings me to my first, most boring, and most important tip. Practice, and more practice. I was lucky in that I started songwriting as a kid, so I got a lot of those embarrassing growing pains out of the way before I hit adulthood. But if you're learning how to write songs for the first time as an adult, the thing you need to accept is that you're probably not going to be very good when you first start. You're probably going to write a lot of garbage. Your chords will be awkward and your words will be clunky, and you'll end up sounding like your influences and not like you. That said, there's plenty to learn from your influences. When I was 12 or 13 years old, I invented a game, it felt like a game, where I took the lyrical template of a song and I wrote it all out. I wrote how many lines were in the verse, how many syllables were in each line. That's what you can see in the brackets. And I wrote down what the rhyming scheme was. I was never very sophisticated with that, but as long as I could understand, okay, where are we rhyming? Here we have on and on, a very amazing rhyme. But then there are inner rhymes over here, which I put in green. And those were the kinds of things that I would notice. And then I would use that pre-existing song as a template. I would write my own words within that template. And it was actually a really useful trick that I just kind of thought was a game. It's not that I wrote any great songs this way because it was all based on copying, but it was a really good way to learn. I was both learning how to be creative, like I learned how to write my own words, but I was sticking to tried and true guidelines from someone who's like a way better songwriter than I was/am. So that's tip number 2. Pick a piece of music you really like, break it apart to its smallest components, dissect it, and then write your own song based on those components. If you're doing this with instrumental music, you'll need some understanding of chords and harmonies. So a variety of ways that you might do this is by, say, copying the harmonies but changing the melody. So say you're really inspired by a Chopin piece, you really like the left-hand harmonies, use that, but then just write your own melody. You could also change the structure of the harmony. So for example, if the chords are written in a broken pattern, maybe you do them solid, or you change the order of the harmony. Instead of following, C chord, F chord, G chord, C chord, maybe you do C chord, G chord, F chord, or something like that. You can just kind of rearrange them a little bit. These instrumental tips largely have to do with rearranging harmonies, so you'd want to be comfortable with how to figure out what chords are there. And lastly, you can copy some but not all of the chords, which leaves room for your own ideas. Like maybe Chopin goes C chord to G chord, but you think it would sound really cool going like C chord to A minor or something. Trying that, but still using the general structure of the song. So these are just a few ideas. Following chords like this is a good way to get inside of a piece and figure out which chords work together and which don't. As for creating a melody, I've done several videos on the topic of melody, and it's a little too much to get into here, but if songwriting is a topic you're interested in, you might want to check out those videos, and we'll link those in the blog. Do check them out if you want to kind of expand what we're discussing today. Another thing you'll notice about my songwriting scribbles is that they are not notated. I virtually never notate just because I find it far too slow, and it's too set in stone when you're just brainstorming. So the way I usually do first drafts is by simply writing the letters in the notes I'm playing. So no, this doesn't give me a sense of rhythm, although sometimes like in this one you can see that I drew bar lines to kind of give you a sense of like where the parts, like where the new bar, like where the 4 beat is. And every now and then I might go and like actually notate a bit of rhythm. But for the most part, I just keep it really this simple. It's the first draft phase, like the idea phase, and it tends to go by so quick and it's so fleeting that I find it's all about capturing the essence of an idea as fast as I can. So that's why I don't notate. If I'm worried about forgetting something, since I don't have the detail of notation written down, I record it. So every time I get a new phone, I basically fill it up with a massive amount of audio recordings. As you can see, it kind of goes on and on and on. These are just all random ideas. And listening to a recorded clip will remind me of what the rhythm is, and it tunes back in my head if I kind of forget it on a later day. Yeah, and if like the scribbles that I wrote down are kind of confusing, this will usually jog my memory. So that's basically the next tip. Record all of your ideas. I don't write best personally when I work just on one song start to finish at a time. I like having a lot of ideas and building them up slowly when the inspiration strikes. So say if I'm sitting down to a songwriting session, the first thing I usually do is noodle around on the piano for 10 or 15 minutes, just see if there's any new ideas lurking around in my brain. And sometimes there are. Sometimes I get new ideas this way, and sometimes I'm not feeling very creative or whatever it is at the moment, and nothing new comes to me. So if that's the case and nothing new pops in my brain, that's all good. I go to my trusty notebook, which is full of random ideas, or my phone's large selection of audio files, and listen through a few of my past ideas. And when I do this, the vast majority of the time, I'll stumble upon something that I think sounds kind of cool, and I'll start working on or developing that idea. So for me, having an endless stream of random ideas means that I almost always can be inspired and have access to inspiration, even if I'm not thinking anything fresh up in the moment. The funny thing is that most of my ideas usually languish and are never actually actualized. I would say that most of my ideas are pretty bad. If I were to give a ratio, I always say that I probably, for every 10 ideas I have, maybe one of them is good. And I think that's pretty normal, to be honest. I don't think I'm like an exception. What I do find is that the more ideas I have, the more likely I am to come across a good idea. And I try not to get too attached to the ideas I do have, and I try to remember that most of them are going to be pretty bad. And I love them when I first write them. Every idea I have, like when I have the idea, I think, wow, this is super awesome. And then maybe an hour later, I'm like, meh. Or the next day. It's like if you've ever been into drawing, you can draw a picture, think it's amazing, walk away from it, and come back and you can see all the flaws. That's kind of how I feel about my ideas too. I know not everyone writes this way. I know some people pretty much keep all of the ideas they have and they write very little. I just don't personally find this to be very effective because, as mentioned, most of my ideas aren't very good. Which is my next tip. Throw away more ideas than you keep. It's really hard to look at your own art objectively. They're like your own little pets. And you look at them and you know, rose-colored glasses, think they're amazing. But maybe it's like if you have a cat that's really mean or something, maybe you really think it's the greatest cat ever, but anytime you have a friend come over, they're like, your cat's kind of mean, trying to bite me. So I feel that way about ideas. I feel like we can form irrational emotional attachments to our ideas to the point where we have a difficult time letting them go if they're not, in objective points, very good. You really don't want to be in the position where you're like snuggling your pet ideas and you think they're so awesome, and then you share them with all your friends, and they're your friends, so they're not going to tell you it's bad, but they might think it's bad, and they're just going to be smiling and nodding when you show them. You want to have ideas that are objectively good, so that when you share them with people, they can be like, oh, actually, this is all right. And the way you get to that point is to just really, really be ruthless. Listen like you don't love it. Listen like you're a completely cold, neutral observer. Is it actually a good idea? Try your hardest to cut through that rose-colored tint. So adapting this to an instrumental medium would be taking advice from the master songwriters, like putting up a piece of art in front of you. Maybe you contemplate that while you play your instrument. That could be a way to do it. Or maybe you're out and about in nature, which is less practical if you're a piano player. But if you're, gathering ideas for lyrics, or if you're strumming on a guitar or something, maybe you can then draw inspiration from nature. Or you could take pictures of nature, of maybe a really important place to you, and you can look at those pictures and reflect on those while you write, and that could be helpful. Or maybe you can just vividly imagine something, and this is a really productive thing to do too. It could be, it gives you unlimited potential, because it could be a real thing that you imagine and try to reflect on and return to emotionally, something that's happened. It could be something that you make up, or maybe I do this sometimes as I put myself in the heads of people I know and kind of write from their perspective. And so I would say, like, developing your imagination could be a pretty big part of it too. The idea is this: immerse yourself in whatever you're writing. So don't write in a vacuum. Don't just think about nothing when you write. Really get into the emotional zone. And there are a variety of ways to do this, just like we talked about, like looking at art or listening to your idea over and over to get absorbed in it, being out in nature, so on and so on. So to review, these are my songwriting tips for you today. So number 1, practice constantly. That's like anything if you want to get good at in life. That should be fairly obvious, but it does require a lot of practical application. Number 2, pick a piece of music you really like, break it apart, and then write your own song based on those broken apart components. I used to do this with lyrical pieces, but you could do this with instrumental music too. Number 3, record all of your ideas on paper and digitally. Like, all of that is good, just so you always have a pool of inspiration. Number 4, throw away more ideas than you keep. Chances are most of what you write isn't going to be very good, and it's okay to accept that. Number 5, immerse yourself in whatever you're writing. Really find a way, and it's different for everyone, but really find a way to get into the headspace of what you're writing. Really immerse yourself in it so that you're not just writing with like a blank mind, so that you're really kind of accessing the right emotional place for the song. All of these tips are based on practical application, so they require work. It requires time and effort to do these things, but it's how I've been writing music personally for the last 20 plus years. I feel like these 5 points are what I most consistently practice when I write, and I feel like these are the things that help me the most. Even if they seem simple or obvious, this is essentially like the laws that I live by when I'm writing music. And that is all for today's video on songwriting. Again, it's a little bit unconventional in that I'm not like holding your hand and giving you really, really detailed step-by-step. Maybe that's like the kind of thing for a future video. But hopefully this gives you some practical, actionable things that you can do to become better at songwriting if that's something you care about. So thank you for watching this video. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you for all of you who watch these videos and comment. And I'm just generally grateful for all of you. Catch you in the next video. All of these tips are based on practical application.